Latest research on the Shroud of Turin looks like it may have proven its authenticity. Did it? Doesn't matter. Well, welcome to One Life Network, everyone. And I'm Bret, and I've been a pastor a long time. And at One Life, we're passionate about exploring cultural conversations from a Christ-centered worldview with people who believe and those who don't believe. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in being a part of, join our community by subscribing and leaving a comment. Now, the Shroud of Turin is the most studied and debated religious relic in all of history, and it's making a huge reappearance in the news again. There's a good reason for that. In-depth research with new technological approaches seems to be overturning what was seen as a debunking moment back in 1988. That's why everyone is so excited and interested. It has to do with the rate of degeneration of the fibers that points to the fact that it is older than previously thought, going all the way back to the actual time of Jesus. Now, there's lots of channels and articles that can give you details on that. I want to come at this whole thing from kind of a pastoral angle with a couple of encouragements and a couple of warnings. I've been intrigued by the Shroud from a distance for a long time. I've not been completely indifferent to it, but I'm certainly not obsessed with it either. No matter what you believe about it, it is really, really super interesting. Here's a couple of encouragements. Number one, it gets to the very heartbeat of the Christian faith. The Bible claims that the faith is rooted in real time, real places, and real people. It's historical in the same way that the current presidential run is going to be historical. It really did happen in real time and real places. It's not based on mythological story. That's especially true of the resurrection. The resurrection is presented as a real event with a literal body being literally dead and literally rising again from the dead after 3 days. Now, each of the 4 Gospels mentions a rich man, Joseph of Arimathea, placing Jesus' body in a linen cloth. Now, the shroud is linen, and it is also of a quality that was only available to the rich at that time. Listen to how John chapter 20, verses 4 through 8 read. It says, the two were running together, and the other disciple ran ahead faster than Peter and came to the tomb first. And stooping and looking in, he saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. And so Simon Peter also came, following him, and he entered the tomb, and he saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the face cloth which had been on his head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. So the other disciple who had come first to the tomb then also entered, and he saw and he believed. You can hear the emphasis inside the text on the fact that this burial shroud is linen, and where they've pointed out that that was only available to richer people. It was a very nice material, and the shroud is that. So number 2, this demonstrates the relationship between science and faith, which I'm very passionate about on this channel. Science and faith are not in contradiction or opposed to each other. That's a modern myth. The majority of pioneers of science, they were believing people, and their worldview was on the basis of the basis of their scientific inquiry. They believed that the universe would be intelligible, and that because God created it, they could learn about it, and they could learn about God by observing his creation. Now, this is important to the discussion about the shroud because science is helping us understand it and figure out whether it's authentic or not. The two ideas are walking hand in hand. And if we have honest data, undisrupted by biases in either direction, it could be verified or not verified. And Christians have no reason to be afraid of either one of those things. We're to be people of truth, and so we should be very confident about all of this. That's the 2 encouragements. Now, I have a couple of cautions as well. First, because the Bible says nothing about an image on the shroud, we're smart not to put too much of our money in its stock, so to speak. It can be super exciting to think about it being proven to be the actual burial cloth of Jesus, and the image being on there is really him, and it got there through a supernatural event. That's all great. But if you give too much over to that idea, you can be in for a serious disappointment if the evidence gets pushed back on. In 1988, the shroud was famously put through a carbon dating test, which showed it to be from the Middle Ages. Now, imagine being someone who had put a lot of emotional and deep conviction stock into the shroud before that. That had to add up to some serious disillusionment, or can put you in a place where you're making bad arguments because you're emotionally attached to something. You should also know that an Italian scientist was paid to reproduce something like the shroud using only materials available in the Middle Ages. And he was able to do it, at least to the satisfaction of certain skeptics. Now, so be careful and be aware of the data around it, both positive and negative. If it's authentic, that's amazing. If it's not, it's a bummer, but it has no real bearing on whether or not Jesus rose again from the dead. Now, finally, there is an inherent danger in religious relics themselves, and this caution is a direct biblical one. Listen to what the Bible has to say in 1 Kings chapter 18, whenever Hezekiah was trying to bring revival and root out idolatry in Israel. This is an intriguing passage. It says, he, Hezekiah, removed the high places and broke down the sacred pillars and cut down the Asherah. He also broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For until those days, the sons of Israel burned incense to it, and it was called Nuashtan. Now, first of all, let's just say it. That's an incredible relic to have, the actual snake on the pole that Moses uses, and Jesus even references. Wouldn't it be amazing to still have that on display somewhere? But it was on display for them, and the people started worshiping the thing itself. Now, it can be hard for us to worship an intangible, invisible God at times, and it's much easier to have things that we can see, so the temptation's always there. Now, something everybody also needs to know is that it's a theory that has some merit, that relics were such a thing for individuals as well as politicians, that faking them during the Middle Ages and creating forgeries was pretty common practice because of that belief kind of stuff. So enjoy the shroud and the research around it and follow it and be intrigued by it, intrigued by all the possibilities, but never give up your reasoning faculties and the right kind of healthy skepticism. Check out this video to explore the nature of evidence a little bit more. Hope that helps. See you next time.